She walked onto the couch smiling, polished, composed, camera ready. It was supposed to be a soft morning interview, coffee mugs on the table, warm lights, friendly questions, a chance for Meghan Markle to talk about new beginnings. But the set of this morning isn't built for royal entitlement, and Allison Hammond doesn't back down when someone starts talking down to her. By the end of this broadcast, smiles would vanish, voices would rise, and Meghan would be escorted out of a studio she thought she controlled. Before we begin, if you enjoy intense, real conversations where ego meets accountability, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more stories that go deeper than headlines. Now, let's begin. The atmosphere inside the studio was bright and deceptively calm. Large windows flooded the set with soft morning light. The Thames shimmered quietly in the background. The iconic blue sofa waited center stage, decorated with pastel cushions and neatly placed coffee cups. It was designed to feel safe, familiar, human. Meghan Markle walked in, wearing an elegant cream outfit, posture perfect, smile rehearsed. The audience applauded politely. She took her seat across from Dermot O'Leary and Allison Hammond. Dermot leaned forward with his usual warmth. "Meghan, welcome. It's lovely to have you." "Thank you," Meghan replied, nodding lightly. "Happy to be here." Allison beamed. "So, how are you finding life these days? California sunshine, new projects?" Meghan crossed her legs slowly. "It's peaceful," she said. "Very different from everything else." Dermot smiled. "I imagine?" Allison chuckled. "Palm trees instead of palaces, right?" A few laughs from the audience. Meghan smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yes," she said, "though I think people romanticize that transition far too much." Dermot nodded. "Of course. You've been very open about stepping away from royal life." Meghan tilted her head. "Stepping away is one way to phrase it." Allison leaned in. "How would you phrase it?" Meghan paused. "Choosing freedom." Allison smiled. "That sounds empowering." Meghan lifted her chin slightly. "It is, especially when you've spent years being managed." Dermot nodded carefully. "Well, you've certainly been busy since then. Podcasts, charity work, new ventures." Meghan waved her hand dismissively. Yes, but I don't really see those as ventures. They're platforms for impact." Allison blinked. "Oh?" Meghan leaned back. "When you've sat with world leaders and spoken on global stages, daytime television projects don't exactly feel like the main event." The room shifted. Dermot's smile tightened. "Well," he said gently, "our audience does appreciate hearing directly from people." Meghan gave a polite laugh. "I'm sure they do." Allison glanced at Dermot, then back at Meghan. "So, tell us about your latest initiative. You've been working on mental health awareness again, right?" Meghan nodded. "Yes, at a much higher strategic level." Allison tilted her head. "What does that mean exactly?" Meghan sighed softly. "It means policy conversations, funding structures, long-term influence. Reading books to children is lovely, but that's optics." You could hear the audience inhale. Dermot leaned forward. "I think many people would say being present with kids is the work." Meghan smiled thinly. "That's a sweet sentiment." Allison frowned. "Sweet?" Meghan shrugged. "But some of us think bigger picture." Dermot cleared his throat. "Our viewers include teachers, carers, parents," Meghan interrupted, "and I respect them deeply." Then added, "But I operate on a different scale." Allison sat back slightly. "What scale is that?" Meghan met her eyes. "Global." The silence was uncomfortable. Dermot tried to soften it. "Right. Let's talk about your upcoming projects." Meghan nodded. "Yes, we're exploring lifestyle branding, digital storytelling, and community engagement." Allison raised an eyebrow. "Lifestyle branding?" Meghan smiled. "People trust authenticity." Allison replied calmly. "Some might call that marketing." Meghan's expression hardened. "Only if you misunderstand influence." Dermot glanced at Allison again. She leaned forward. "Some critics say it feels a bit curated." Meghan laughed once, not warmly. "Critics always say things." Allison didn't back off. "But do you understand why people feel confused when you talk about wanting privacy while launching brands?" Meghan crossed her arms. Privacy doesn't mean invisibility. Allison nodded. No, but it does usually mean less press. Meghan leaned forward. You don't get to define my boundaries. Allison met her gaze. I'm just asking. Meghan smiled tightly. And I'm answering. Dermot tried to redirect. All right, let's bring in a viewer question. The screen lit up. Dermot read, Emma from Leeds asks, do you ever regret how things ended with the royal family? Meghan froze, just for a moment, then lifted her chin. No. Short, sharp. Allison watched her closely. No hesitation there, Allison said quietly. Meghan smiled. We chose growth. Allison followed up. And reconciliation? Meghan shrugged. Growth doesn't require permission. The audience shifted. Allison leaned forward. But families usually do. Meghan's eyes narrowed. That's a very simplified view. Allison held her ground. So is cutting everyone off. Meghan inhaled slowly. You're turning this into something it isn't. Allison replied calmly. I think you brought it here. Meghan stared at her, and for the first time since she walked in, the polished smile started to crack. Meghan shifted in her seat, not nervously, deliberately. She crossed her legs again, slower this time, reclaiming control of her posture like it mattered more than the conversation. Allison noticed. So did Dermot. The room felt tighter now. The polite morning show warmth had drained away, replaced by something sharper. Allison cleared her throat. Meghan, she said calmly, a lot of people watching at home feel like you speak about ordinary people, but not with them. Meghan blinked. That's not fair. Allison nodded. Help us understand it then. Meghan leaned back. When you've lived inside an institution that suppresses your voice, you learn very quickly that you either take ownership of your narrative or you disappear. Allison listened, then asked, And what about everyone else's narrative? Meghan frowned. What do you mean? I mean teachers, nurses, parents, people who don't have teams or platforms. Meghan smiled thinly. They don't live my life. Allison held her gaze. No, but they live real ones. A murmur moved through the audience. Dermot tried to soften it. I think what Allison's saying is, Meghan interrupted. With respect, Dermot, I don't need my words translated. Dermot froze for half a second. Allison raised an eyebrow. Okay, Meghan continued. I've spent years being misinterpreted by people who have never walked in my shoes. Allison nodded. That may be true. Then gently, but you're sitting on a sofa watched by millions. Meghan shrugged. And that comes with responsibility. Meghan laughed softly. Responsibility to who? Allison didn't hesitate. To the people who made you relevant. Meghan's smile disappeared. That's a very transactional way of looking at influence. Allison leaned forward. No, that's a human way. Meghan folded her arms. You keep trying to pull this down to some everyday level. Allison blinked. Down? Meghan caught herself too late. She exhaled. You know what I mean. Allison didn't move. I think I do. Dermot cleared his throat. Let's take another viewer question. He glanced at the screen. Mark from Bristol asks, do you ever feel your projects come across more like branding than advocacy? Meghan laughed out loud. Actually laughed. That's such a tired question. Allison watched her carefully. Tired doesn't mean invalid. Meghan leaned forward now. People always confuse visibility with vanity, Allison replied calmly. And people also confuse branding with purpose. Meghan's eyes narrowed. So, now you're accusing me of being performative? Allison shook her head. I'm saying some people feel that way. Meghan scoffed. Some people also think the earth is flat. The audience reacted awkwardly. Allison's smile faded. That's not the same thing. Meghan tilted her head. It's exactly the same. Opinions without context. Allison leaned back. No, it's accountability. Meghan stared. You're really enjoying pushing this? Allison replied quietly. I'm enjoying asking questions. Meghan rolled her eyes. Of course. Dermot jumped in. Meghan, can I ask, do you ever regret how publicly everything unfolded? Meghan didn't hesitate. No. Allison glanced at her. Not even a little? Meghan lifted her chin. We chose our path. Allison nodded. And your family? Meghan's jaw tightened. That's private. Allison didn't retreat. You've spoken about healing, Meghan snapped. Healing doesn't mean performing reconciliation. Allison held steady. No, but it usually includes humility. Meghan inhaled sharply. You're framing this like I owe people emotional access. Allison answered evenly. You offer emotional access for a living. The audience went silent. Meghan stared at her. That's incredibly disrespectful. Allison crossed her arms. No, that's incredibly accurate. Dermot shifted uncomfortably. All right, let's take a breath. Meghan waved him off. No, let's not. She turned back to Allison. You sit here pretending you understand what it's like to be hunted by the press. Allison replied softly. No, but I understand what it's like to be talked down to. Meghan blinked. Allison continued. And I understand what it feels like when someone walks into a room assuming they're above it. Meghan laughed bitterly. You think I feel above you? Allison met her gaze. I think you act like it. The audience reacted audibly this time. Meghan straightened. This is exactly why I don't usually do shows like this. Allison tilted her head. Because we don't flatter you, Meghan snapped. Because you turn trauma into entertainment. Allison shook her head. You turned it into content. Meghan stood halfway up from the sofa, then sat back down, visibly restraining herself. Her voice dropped. You're crossing a line, Allison replied quietly. I think you crossed it when you dismissed regular people as optics. Meghan looked away, then back. You don't know me. Allison nodded. No. She paused. But I know arrogance when I see it. The studio froze. Meghan clenched her jaw. Dermot tried again. Let's move on. But Meghan raised a hand. No. She turned fully toward Allison. You wanted honesty? Allison nodded. Always. Meghan leaned forward. I don't need approval from daytime television hosts, Allison answered calmly. And we don't need lectures from someone who thinks global means superior. Meghan's eyes flashed. You're twisting everything, Allison replied. No. She gestured between them. We're just finally talking. Meghan sat back slowly. Her composure was visibly cracking now, and everyone in that studio could feel it. Whatever polite mask Meghan had walked in with was starting to fall apart. The studio no longer felt like a morning show. The cushions were still pastel, the mugs were still warm, but the air had changed. Meghan sat straighter now, shoulders pulled back, chin lifted. Not relaxed anymore, but braced. Allison noticed. So did Dermot. Dermot cleared his throat carefully. All right, he said gently. Let's reset for a moment. Meghan didn't look at him. She was still locked onto Allison. You keep framing this like I walked in here with arrogance, Meghan said, when all I've done is defend myself. Allison replied calmly. No, you walked in here talking about global impact while dismissing everyday people as optics. Meghan scoffed. That's not what I said. Allison leaned forward. That's exactly what you implied. Meghan shook her head. You're projecting. Allison met her gaze. I'm listening. Meghan laughed sharply. No, you're moralizing. Dermot tried again. Meghan, maybe what Allison means. Meghan cut him off. With respect, Dermot, I don't need interpretation. Dermot froze. Allison raised her eyebrows. Okay. Meghan continued, voice tightening. I've spent years being silenced, minimized, and controlled. I will not sit here while people twist my words. Allison nodded slowly. And I won't sit here while someone talks down to us. The audience murmured. Meghan turned toward Allison fully now. You think this is bravery? Allison replied quietly. No. She paused. I think it's boundaries. Meghan laughed. Boundaries? Allison nodded. Yes, like not letting someone walk into our studio and act superior. Meghan leaned forward. You're being incredibly disrespectful. Allison crossed her arms. So are you. The room went silent. Dermot shifted in his seat. Let's take another viewer question, he said quickly. The screen lit up. Dermot read. Rachel from Manchester asks, do you feel any responsibility for the ongoing tension between Harry and his family? Meghan's expression hardened instantly. That's outrageous. Allison watched her closely. Why? Meghan snapped. Because women always get blamed for men's family dynamics. Allison nodded. That's fair, then added. But you also speak publicly about those dynamics. Meghan's voice rose. Because they affect my life, Allison replied evenly. And your speaking affects theirs. Meghan leaned forward. So now, I'm responsible for everyone's feelings. Allison didn't hesitate. No, she paused. But you are responsible for how you treat people. Meghan stared. You're turning this into a character trial. Allison shook her head. No, you're making it one. Meghan's jaw tightened. You have no idea what I've endured, Allison answered softly. You're right, then looked her straight in the eye. But suffering doesn't give you permission to be condescending. A collective inhale moved through the studio. Meghan stood halfway up, then sat back down. Her voice dropped. You're enjoying this? Allison shook her head. I'm exhausted by it. Meghan blinked. Allison continued. I'm exhausted watching powerful people talk about healing while treating others like they're small. Meghan laughed bitterly. You think I'm powerful? Allison replied calmly. You walked in with PR teams, brand deals, and international platforms? Meghan snapped. And trauma. Allison nodded. Yes. Then added, but trauma doesn't excuse entitlement. Meghan clenched her fists. You keep calling it entitlement. Allison leaned forward. Because that's what it looks like. Dermot raised both hands slightly. Okay, let's slow this down. Meghan ignored him. She turned fully toward Allison. You sit here pretending you understand what it's like to be scrutinized globally. Allison replied softly. No. She paused. But I know what it's like when someone enters a room already convinced they're better than everyone in it. Meghan stood, this time fully. The audience froze. Dermot stood halfway too. Meghan. She held up a hand. No. Her voice shook. You invited me here to be dissected. Allison remained seated. No, she said. We invited you here to talk. Meghan pointed. And you ambushed me. Allison met her gaze. We asked questions. Meghan snapped. You weaponized them. Allison replied calmly. You weaponized your status. Meghan's breathing became visible. Her composure was gone now. You people are unbelievable. Allison didn't move. You don't like it when someone doesn't bow. Meghan shook her head. This is beneath me. Allison replied quietly. Then why are you still standing here? The audience went completely silent. Meghan opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands trembled slightly. Dermot stepped in. Meghan, maybe we should take a break. Meghan grabbed her bag. No. She looked at Allison. You wanted honesty? Allison nodded. Always. Meghan's voice dropped low. I don't need validation from morning television, Allison answered. And we don't need lectures from someone who thinks fame equals depth. Meghan stared, her lips pressed together. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Meghan said quietly, I'm done. She turned toward the edge of the set. But everyone could feel it. This wasn't over, not yet. Meghan was already halfway toward the edge of the set when Dermot O'Leary stood fully. Meghan, let's just pause for a second, Dermot said carefully, palms open. She didn't turn back. I've been paused my whole life, Meghan replied. I'm not doing it again. Behind them, the bright studio of this morning felt suddenly smaller. The pastel cushions were still perfectly arranged, the coffee mug still warm. But whatever softness had existed was gone. Meghan stopped near the camera, then turned sharply. You invited me here under the pretense of a friendly conversation, she said. Instead, I was interrogated. Allison Hammond stood too. Her voice was calm, firm. No, Allison said. You were asked questions. Meghan laughed, short and brittle. You framed everything like I'm some calculated PR machine. Allison met her eyes. You framed yourself that way. Meghan scoffed. I came here to talk about healing, Allison answered quietly. And you came in talking down to everyone. Meghan's jaw tightened. That's your interpretation. Allison didn't move. That's your behavior. The audience sat frozen. Dermot stepped closer. Meghan, please. She cut him off with a raised hand. No. Her voice shook now. You sit here pretending to understand trauma while judging how I survive it. Allison crossed her arms. No, she replied. "I'm asking why your survival keeps coming with lectures." Meghan pointed toward Allison. "You're enjoying this." Allison shook her head. "I'm tired of it." Meghan blinked. Allison continued. "I'm tired of powerful people walking into rooms like this and acting like everyone else is small." Meghan stepped forward. "You think I feel above you?" Allison met her halfway. "I think you act like it." A sharp inhale rippled through the audience. Meghan's face flushed deep red. "You have no idea what I've sacrificed." Allison nodded. "I believe you," then added, "but sacrifice doesn't excuse entitlement." Meghan clenched her fists. "You keep calling it entitlement." Allison replied evenly. "Because that's what it looks like." Dermot raised his voice slightly for the first time. "All right, this has gone far enough." Meghan turned on him. "Oh, now you step in?" Dermot held his ground. "Yes, because this is no longer a conversation." Meghan scoffed. "You invited me here to be torn apart." Allison answered calmly. "No, we invited you here to talk to people." Meghan shook her head. "You don't get to decide how I tell my story." Allison replied, "And you don't get to treat everyone else like background noise." Silence. Meghan grabbed her bag. "This whole thing is beneath me." Allison didn't flinch. "Then why did you come?" Meghan froze for half a second. No answer came. Dermot glanced off camera. A producer stepped closer to the edge of the set. Not dramatic, just present. Dermot spoke gently. "Meghan, we're going to take a break." Meghan laughed in disbelief. "You're cutting me off?" Dermot nodded. "Yes." Meghan's voice sharpened. "You're throwing me out?" Allison stepped forward. "You've been dismissive, you've been rude, and you've talked down to everyone here." Meghan stared. "You can't do this," Dermot answered quietly. "It's our studio." Two staff members appeared beside the cameras. Meghan looked around wildly. "This is unbelievable." Allison met her eyes. "You walked in expecting control." She paused. "This isn't your house." Meghan straightened her jacket, trying to recover dignity that had already slipped away. "You'll regret this," Meghan said. Allison replied softly. "Maybe," then firmer. "But we won't be disrespected on our own sofa." The staff moved closer. Meghan turned toward the exit. She walked slowly, controlled, but her shoulders were tense and everyone could see it. At the doorway, she stopped. "This isn't over." Allison didn't move. "It usually is." The door closed. The studio stayed silent. Dermot exhaled and returned to his seat. Allison sat back down slowly. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dermot looked toward the audience. "Well," he said quietly, "that escalated." A few uncertain claps followed. Not applause, acknowledgement. Allison leaned forward. "For the record," she said, voice steady, "we didn't want it to end like that." She paused. "But sometimes people don't walk away because they're misunderstood. They walk away because they can't stand being challenged." The audience absorbed it. Outside that studio, headlines were already forming. Inside, the truth was simpler. Meghan didn't lose her temper. She lost control. And Allison Hammond didn't raise her voice. She just refused to shrink.